Welcome to Insight Marketing Success, the podcast where marketing knowledge meets real-world experience, from vision to execution.
Hi, Dylan. Welcome to IMS Insight Marketing Success. Glad to see you today and having you here with us. I had the opportunity to meet with you, but for our audience, tell us who you are.
Yeah, so I'm Dylan Adams. I am a partner and patent attorney at the firm of Davis Wright Tremaine. And we're one of those really big law firms called an AmLaw 100 firm. So we have over 650 attorneys, offices all up and down the West Coast from Anchorage to LA, New York, DC, Chicago. And my practice is primarily helping companies of all sizes protect their ideas and inventions with patents. And my clients range from garage inventors to startups to Shark Tank companies to Fortune 100 companies. And so what my practice really is it is planning patent protection, deciding what to file patent applications on, when to file patent applications, then drafting and filing these patent applications at the United States Patent and Trademark Office. And then those applications wait in line for 1 to 3 years before examination begins. And then it starts this negotiation process with the examiner where we're trying to get the broadest patent possible. And the examiner has to make sure that what is claimed is new and non-obvious. And then I work through that negotiation process with the examiner. And hopefully at some point the application is allowed and then we'll grant as a patent.
Wonderful. Amazing. Well, tell us about your education and your journey to get to where you are today.
Yeah, so to be a patent attorney, I had to pass a state bar, but I also had to pass what's called the patent bar. And to sit for this patent bar, you have to have a technical background. So I have an undergrad in biochemistry, molecular biology, and then a master's in electrical engineering. And really, I have to understand the technology of my clients as well, if not better than them. And the patent documents, they are highly, highly technical documents that is, sometimes 50, 100 plus pages. And so, I have to geek out on this technology and know it really, really well. That's what I love about my job. But at the same time, it requires me to have this technical background. And so I've come from a background where, I've done coding since I was a kid. I love technology. And luckily I get to apply that in my everyday job where I get to work with cutting edge and future technology on a daily basis.
Amazing. Sounds like you love what you do.
Totally. Yeah. I really enjoy it. Again, I like to just geek out on technology and learn about new things. And luckily I have a job where I can do that on a regular basis and work with cool people too, working with the inventors and the entrepreneurs. I like that spirit of people who are creating new things. And I really feel like I can make a difference in those people's businesses and their lives by shepherding them through the patent process, which to a lot of people is really scary and difficult and confusing.
Okay. So when you first started with the company, how did you market yourself? How do you expand the brand?
Yeah, so I actually started my career back when I was in law school. I was what was called a patent agent. I had passed that patent bar, but I wasn't yet an attorney. And I had my own practice and then merged that practice with another guy who was also a patent agent. And I started out, trying a little bit of everything, right? So, I did web marketing and even stuff in like phone books and print ads and even on things like Craigslist. And what I really realized is that sort of traditional marketing wasn't that great. And the best ROI that I got was through targeted content. So for instance, doing speaking engagements, doing classes, videos, and then my book, things like that. That's where there tends to be a lot of high ROI is putting out content and then having people come to you based on that. The traditional marketing, it created a lot of leads, but they were a lot of times people who were looking for free information and weren't really qualified to actually engage us for our, for the patent process.
So it was an education process that you did with your prospects that turned into leads and then customers.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And a lot of it is, and that's kind of been my philosophy for a long time now, is put out a lot of content, try to help as many people as possible, create a ton of value, and then people will come to you when they have the right needs. And it's the kind of thing where, I've had a long career and I've really been supported by the startup community and the community of entrepreneurs. And I really like to give back in a lot of ways. There's a lot of bad information out there online about how to do the patent process. And so I want to put some good information out there and help people along. And if some people decide they want to work with me, hey, great. But really, I'd like to help the community as much as possible.
All right, so let's go back to those traditional things that you were talking before, or even recently. In one of those where you invested a lot of money and you expected this return and you received this return, but you learned something that happened.
For sure.
Okay, so tell me about a situation like that.
Yeah, and that's something that's really important is to try things and try things for because everyone's business and everyone's practice is going to be different, right? I mean, for me, for instance, it was like doing web ads, right? You would do Google AdSense and things like that, and you have people email you. You do a campaign, and it was people who really weren't all that serious and people who were shopping around. A lot of times, that's what those kind of things tend to attract, and so that's what I learned is that doing that sort of media didn't really work for my practice. Sure, it attracted people, but it was people who were looking for basic information or they were shopping around. But when people see your content and they create a relationship with you in a lot of ways through your content, they're going to come to you and they're going to want to work with you regardless. They're not shopping around a lot of times. They want to work with you because they already feel like they know you.
So you have learned about, educating the prospects. You create a lot of content, but in today's age, what trend in marketing do you see in your industry or around?
Yeah, so I think video is a huge one. And you've probably seen from my YouTube videos and the other content that I do on video. I think video is going to become extremely important and being able to communicate well via video, being able to produce good video. And this is something obviously you see. I mean, you're doing this a lot yourself.
Yes.
It's going to become increasingly important because people want to make a connection with people. That's what we're lacking in a lot of ways, is people having personal connection with people. And so video is a great way to do that. I find that people who watch my videos or read my book, things like that, they know me as a person better. They trust me more. And so when they come to me, like I said, they're not necessarily shopping around and like looking at me as like, well, you're just one guy among many. You're somebody who I trust, who I feel like I have a relationship with. I want to work with you. And so I think video is a great way to do that. And the way I see video is I've been doing this to learn, right? Learn how to be a better content producer and be better on camera. And then also skills like hooks, right? Hooks for videos, that how to hook the audience so they watch more. And this is also really relevant to things like even email and other sort of like content like LinkedIn posts and whatnot. Learning about hooks is really important. And it's something, that I've gotten better at, but I can definitely improve on a lot.
Dylan, don't take this wrong, but you sound like one of those geeks that learns everything and wants to learn just about everything,
That's totally me. Exactly. Yeah. I don't take that personally at all. If anything, I that's a huge compliment because that's totally who I am. I love to dig into things and get in the weeds and learn about stuff. And that's really fun for me, for sure.
Okay. That's absolutely a compliment meant to be. All right. Let's talk about the ideal customer for your organization. Let's assume my daughter will be better. My 25-year-old daughter invents something for the kitchen. Is she a candidate, or do you need to have somebody with seed money? What's the ideal customer for your practice?
Yeah, so for our firm, I mean, we deal with people with all sorts of legal issues, but for my practice, I tend to focus on inventors, entrepreneurs, and startups at any stage. And so a lot of times it's actually great for people, like your daughter, to come to me early on and get some advice. But a lot of times, most of the time, what I'm telling people is, hey, don't file a patent application now. It's better to wait as long as possible, develop the idea, be ready before you're actually ready to make public disclosures, public uses, or offers for sale, wait to file a patent application. So a lot of times I'm giving people free advice to, hey, here's the better strategy when you're a startup or you're starting out. People think I need to rush out and I need to get a patent and that's what's going to result in me making tons of money. It's like, it's totally the opposite. It's going to be a waste of money. And so if anything, you need to delay the process. And so, whether or not she's at the stage where she is ready to make public disclosures, public use or offers for sale, or start approaching investors, that may determine whether she's actually ready to start working with somebody like me. But I'm always happy to talk to people early on and kind of give them advice, and not lead them down the wrong road, because a lot of folks say, yeah, get a patent as soon as possible and give me a lot of money. And I've done that in my career, and it's not very gratifying. You work with people who end up not being successful, and long term, it's not a great way to build a business. I want to work with people who are going to be successful and set them up well in the beginning.
All right. I like everything you're saying, and the way you do business is wonderful. All right, let's talk about the character of Dylan Adams. So let's assume that you go into a restaurant and you're in one of those booths where you're back to back and you cannot see anybody in front or anybody behind you. You hear your name, Dylan, and you realize it's your three best friends talking about you. What are the three things you would like to hear from them about you?
Yeah, so something that I would love people to think about me is that I help people and I provide content that is useful to people, and that ideally that I'm a thought leader in patents and technology, including AI and science and things like that. That's what I would ideally like. I mean, that's probably a bit of a stretch, but ideally I'd like to be seen as that, is somebody who's really trying to help clients and provide them value, whether it's with my work where I'm doing stuff with clients substantively, or whether it's with the content that I'm putting out for folks.
All right, Dylan, I'm going to push you because that sounds good on the professional setting, but these are your friends. These are the people who know you at the core, So I want to ask you again, your friends, what would they say? And you're not doing business with your friends.
Gotcha.
What would they say?
Yeah, I would want people to think that I'm a fun guy, I'm interesting, and I'm down to do whatever, which is really the case. Like for instance, like I love to travel all the time, and like I love to go to Mexico and eat street food, and just experience places and experience things, and that I'm somebody who's just open like a sponge to experience stuff and learn new things. Somebody who's not afraid to do new and interesting things and take risks. Those are the things that I think is something that's core to me that I hope that other people would realize and appreciate.
Awesome. Okay, you and I are, getting a little bit of gray and so forth. You know that life has its up and downs, and at times you have problems in the professional and in the personal basis. How do you ground yourself when you have issues in either the professional or personal basis, or both?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's something that, of course, like I've had my ups and downs for sure, and as you know, somebody who owns their own business, things are not always great. And I see a lot of times with my clients, especially in startups, it's ups and downs and ups and downs. And it's really important to be able to manage those times and know that those times are going to happen. And so what I like to do is it's an exercise called decatastrophizing or fear setting. And essentially what I do is, you feel that anxiety or you're up at night and you're worried, right? I'm sure you've had that many times, just as much as I have. And what you do is you think about the worst case scenario. What is really the worst thing that could happen if these things went bad, or if things progress down the line? What is really the worst thing that could happen? And what it makes you realize is that most things aren't that big of a deal when it really comes down to it. The worst case scenario is something you can handle. It's something that can be managed. And when your brain sees those things and sees those concrete steps, you can realize these are a lot of times physiological things. It's the anxiety of your body. It's sort of the old school lizard brain that's saying, "Oh, I'm afraid." It's sort of like, our ancestors use this to try to be wary of being attacked by tigers and things like that.
Yeah.
And our brain still operates with that. And so if you can abstract it and realize, oh, these are just physiological things, and that I'm experiencing this fear or this anxiety, just it's a physiological response, and that I can actually handle this. It's an easy way to make that stuff kind of go away and make those problems that seem big, that feel big, to sort of be washed away.
I use that technique myself. And what I usually do is I give it a value. I go, okay, is this
right?
A 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Totally.
Or is it a 10? We're going to say 10, okay, we're going to be paying a lot of attention. It's
yeah, right.
Like, oh, it's less, But
yeah, exactly.
I just didn't have that awesome name.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. And and you're exactly right that, sometimes, there are things that are really serious and you need to be concerned about, but a lot of times your body doesn't differentiate between a 1 and a 10. It feels the same. You lose sleep in the same way, and you need to find a way to kind of differentiate between those. Otherwise, you burn out and you're just always anxious, and things are always terrible, which is not fun.
Awesome. Dylan, okay, next question. Obviously, you have experience, you have a successful company, you're a partner, you're a successful patent attorney. Imagine that you have the ability to whisper something in your ear at the time of graduation from being a patent attorney. What would you tell yourself?
Yeah, so especially early on in my career, when I was just starting out as an attorney, or even before that, when I was in law school as a patent agent, is trust the process and think long term, because what you do now is really going to have a long-term impact. And what an analogy I use all the time is to plant a lot of seeds. And this is something that, I wish I would have told myself even before law school, even when I was in college or even in high school, is always be planting seeds, always be thinking about your personal brand. And those seeds that you're planting are a lot of them are going to be worthless. They're not going to amount to anything. But some of those, over the long term, they're going to grow into major business for you, major things that are going to really improve your career. And so invest in those things early and think long term, and trust the process. It's really difficult, which I'm sure you've had in the beginning of your career as well, where you're just trying to get people in the door and you don't know what you're doing and things are really difficult. But you have to trust the process, and that sometimes it's slow, right? You plant these seeds and it seems like, oh, nothing is working, I'm not getting traction. But in the long term, these seeds are going to grow into big oak trees of a solid practice that's going to last a whole career. And just to have faith in that and trust the process.
Wonderful. Okay. I'm going to ask you one more question, which is, I didn't send it. This question will make you think. So what do you want your legacy, your professional legacy to be? How you want to be remembered?
Yeah, interesting. So, I think I want to be remembered as somebody who cared about their clients and made a big difference in their personal lives, in addition to the business sense, right? I mean, obviously, I have experience where, I've taken small clients who are maybe a couple people in a small bay of an incubator and helped them through the startup process, getting their first seed round, getting their, first A round, and then closing $100 million rounds, and then growing to a big company with hundreds of employees, right? I want to be seen as somebody who helps companies do that and helps the people who are creating those companies get from point A to point B. Those are the things that I'm most proud of, is that I've been able to help companies do that and also have fun along the way.
Wonderful. Dylan, is there anything else you want to tell our audience about you?
One of the questions you had that I don't think we got to was sort of about marketing things that I'm proud of or that were a big success, and things that I kind of learned about that. One is my book. So my book, Patents Demystified, which is an insider's guide to protecting ideas and inventions with patents. That was a huge undertaking and something that I'm really proud that I was able to actually get done. So it's an official patent guide of the American Bar Association, used in top universities like Harvard, Stanford, and MIT, and has been a #1 bestseller on Amazon. It was a lot of work to get it to fruition. So for instance, I started out where I really wanted to help clients and give them a guide to the patent process. And I was looking for books, and there's lots about how to do it yourself, which is not great, obviously, and stuff for patent attorneys, which is just too detailed in the legal sense. I realized that there's not a lot of good, content out there for people how successful companies navigate the patent process. So I decided to write it. So for nonfiction, you have to write a few sample chapters, then kind of a business plan. And then I shopped that around to literary agents for a while, got a literary agent, and then she shopped that around to publishers. The American Bar Association decided they want to publish it. And then kind of the rest was history. I was very pleased with, the success of it. But I think what people should take away from that is do big things. Don't be afraid to take on a big project like that. I mean, it took almost 2 years from having the idea of doing this to actually getting the books in the mail that were gonna be published and actually have it get traction. So you should think about what you can do to really make a big impact, and think big and take the time to execute things and do interesting stuff.
Dylan, it has been a pleasure having you today in IMS. Love our podcast, and look forward to getting to know you better.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Insight Marketing Success, where marketing knowledge meets real-world experience from vision to execution.